Close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath. You want to change. You want a better life. You want to speak English fluently, or be healthy, or find peace. But year after year, you stay the same. Why? It is not because you are weak. It is not because you are lazy. It is because you are fighting against the current. You are trying to push a heavy stone up a mountain using only your willpower. You are exhausted. The truth is simple, but we often miss it. We focus on the destination. We look at the top of the mountain and we feel small. We forget the path beneath our feet. We forget that a river cuts through rock not because of its power, but because of its persistence. Today we will learn the wisdom of atomic habits. We will discover that you do not need to be a warrior to win. You need to be a gardener. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. It is time to stop forcing and start growing. Welcome to Luminary English, where stories light the way to better English. You are not just watching a video, you are stepping into a story. Listen closely, feel every word, and let today be the chapter that changes your English forever. Part 1. The Quiet Power of 1%. The misconception in our modern world: we are addicted to noise. We believe that a massive success requires a massive action. We think that if we want to change our lives, we must do something earth-shattering. We want the lightning strike. We want the loud explosion of victory. When we start to learn English, or when we try to lose weight, we look for the magic trick. We study for 10 hours in one day. We run until our legs cannot move. And then, when we wake up the next morning and see no change, we feel defeated. We think that because we cannot see the result immediately, the effort was wasted. We think that small changes do not matter. We say to ourselves, what is the point of reading only one page? What is the difference if I learn only one new word? We dismiss the small steps because they seem invisible. But this is a tragedy. It is the quiet, invisible moments that change the world. The story. The bamboo in the earth. Let me tell you a story about the Chinese bamboo tree. It is a lesson in patience and faith. Imagine a farmer planting a seed of this special bamboo. He waters the ground. He tends to the soil with great care. He waits for the sprout to appear. After 1 year, he sees nothing. The ground is empty. After 2 years, he continues to water the soil. Still, there is nothing. After 3 years and then 4 years, there is only silence. The neighbors might laugh at him. They might say, "Why do you waste your water on empty earth?" But the farmer keeps working. He knows something the others do not. Then, in the 5th year, something miraculous happens. A tiny sprout breaks through the soil. And in just 6 weeks, the bamboo tree shoots up to a height of 90 feet. It touches the sky. Now, I ask you a question. Did the tree grow 90 feet in 6 weeks? Or did it grow for 5 years? The answer is 5 years. If the farmer had stopped watering the tree for even 1 day in those first 4 years, the tree would have died in the ground. During those years of silence, the tree was not sleeping. It was building a massive root system underground. It was preparing a foundation strong enough to hold its future success. The solution: compound interest of the soul. Your habits are like the bamboo tree. You are currently in the valley of disappointment. You are working hard, you are studying, and you see no results. You feel like you are pouring water on empty ground. But you must understand the power of compound interest. In finance, money multiplies over time. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. If you can get just 1% better each day for 1 year, you will end up 37 times better by the time you are done. 37 times. That is not a small change. That is a transformation. Conversely, if you get 1% worse each day, you decline nearly down to 0. Do not look for the big win. Do not look for the applause. Look for the 1%. Read 1 page. Listen to 1 minute of audio. Speak 1 sentence. These small actions are not just adding up, they are compounding. You are building your roots in the dark so that one day you can rise. Shadowing phrase. Listen to this sentence. I will say it 3 times. Repeat after me. Focus on the rhythm. Great things are not done by impulse, but by a series of small things brought together. Great things are not done by impulse, but by a series of small things brought together. Great things are not done by impulse, but by a series of small things brought together. Part 2. Changing your soul, not just your actions. The misconception. Why is it so easy to repeat a bad habit and so hard to form a good one? Why do we make promises to ourselves that we break only 2 days later? The problem is deep. It is not just about your willpower. It is about your direction. Imagine layers of an onion. The outer layer is your results, what you get, losing weight or passing an English exam. The middle layer is your process, what you do, going to the gym or studying vocabulary. Most people focus only on these outer layers. They want the result. They want the prize. But they ignore the center, the core of the onion. The center is your identity. It is your belief system. It is your soul. We try to change our actions without changing our beliefs. We try to paint over a rusted car without fixing the engine. We hope that if we just act differently, we will eventually be different. But if the core belief remains the same, the old habit will always return. You cannot fight against your own shadow forever. The story, The 2 Men and the Cigarette. Let me share a story about 2 men who are trying to quit smoking. They're standing together outside an office. A friend approaches them and offers them a cigarette. The first man looks at the cigarette. He desires it, but he shakes his head. He says, "No, thank you. I am trying to quit." It sounds like a reasonable answer, does it not? But look closer. This man still believes he is a smoker. He is a smoker who is trying to be something else. He is hoping that his behavior will change, but his heart is still the same. He is waiting for the struggle to end. The second man looks at the cigarette. He pushes it away gently. He says, "No, thank you. I am not a smoker. Do you hear the difference?" It is a small shift in words, but a massive shift in mindset. The first man is fighting a battle. The second man has already won the war. He does not say, "I am trying." He says, "I am not." Being a smoker was part of his past life, not his current life. He does not identify with a habit anymore. The solution: become the person. True behavior change is identity change. You might start a habit because of motivation, but you will only stick with it because of identity. If you want to learn English, stop saying, "I want to learn English." Stop saying, "I am a student trying to get better." Start saying, "I am an English speaker." When you view yourself as an English speaker, you do not need to force yourself to study. You study because that is what English speakers do. It is natural. It is who you are. The goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to learn an instrument. The goal is to become a musician. Your behaviors are usually a reflection of your identity. What you do is an indication of the type of person you believe that you are. If you want to change the fruit, you must change the root. Decide who you want to be. Prove it to yourself with small wins. Shadowing phrase. Let us practice this new identity. Listen to the rhythm. Breathe. The most effective way to change your habits is to focus not on what you want to achieve, but on who you wish to become. The most effective way to change your habits is to focus not on what you want to achieve, but on who you wish to become. The most effective way to change your habits is to focus not on what you want to achieve, but on who you wish to become. Part 3. The first law. Seeing the signs. The misconception: we often wait for motivation to strike us like a sudden flash of lightning. We want the urge to learn English to arrive like an emotional wave. We sit and wait for the perfect moment, the perfect feeling, or the perfect opportunity. But that moment rarely comes. We think we lack motivation, but really, we lack clarity. If you ask a person, "Do you want to be a better student?" they will say yes. If you ask them, "When and where will you study tomorrow?" they suddenly become silent. This silence is the space where all good intentions go to die. We fail because our habits are too vague. They live only in the shadows of our minds, without a time or a place. A dream without a plan is just a wish. We need to see the signs. The story: The Man Who Missed His Opportunity. Let me tell you about a man named Samuel. Samuel desperately wanted to read more. He bought dozens of books, stacking them neatly on his shelf. Every morning he would wake up and say, "Today, I will read for 20 minutes." But what happened? His morning was full of unconscious habits. He would wake up, check his phone immediately, make a cup of coffee, and then rush out the door. The moment for reading never arrived because he never told his brain exactly when it should happen. The opportunity was invisible. Then, Samuel learned the first lesson of clarity: make it obvious. He changed his intention. He did not say, "I will read sometime today." He said, "After I pour my first cup of coffee, I will sit on the chair in the kitchen and read one page of my English book." What changed? He attached the new habit, reading one page, to an old habit, pouring coffee. The old habit became the trigger, or the sign, for the new habit. Suddenly, the moment to read was not a confusing question. It was a simple answer that appeared every single morning. He took the invisible intention and made it obvious. The solution: light up the path. The goal is to stop relying on motivation and start relying on a system. This is what we call creating a habit stacking system. You already have many routines that run on autopilot. We will use those existing paths to guide the new habits. The first part is called the implementation intention. This is the simple instruction we give our mind. I will do behavior at time in location. For example, to study English, you must make it obvious. I will practice 10 minutes of English shadowing at 7 o'clock in the morning in the living room. The second part is the habit stack. After I finish washing the dishes, I will immediately open my vocabulary application and learn 3 new words. When the time and location are clear, the action becomes obvious. You do not need willpower to do it. You simply need to follow the sign you have already placed for yourself. We move our decisions from the feeling center of the mind to the logical center of the mind. Shadowing phrase. This idea is deep. It is about bringing light to the hidden parts of your soul. Listen carefully. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Part 4. The second law. The desire of the heart. The misconception. We have talked about making your habits obvious. Now, we must ask the deeper question. Even if you see the sign, why do you choose to follow it? The answer is desire. When a good habit feels boring, difficult, or unpleasant, we avoid it. We think that successful people must love the difficult things. This is not entirely true. Successful people have simply found a way to associate the difficult things with a positive feeling. We fail because we try to use logic against a chemical process. Your brain is not motivated by what is important in the long run. Your brain is motivated by what is immediately satisfying. It is driven by the anticipation of pleasure. We try to use brute force, but we are fighting the reward center of our own minds. We must learn to speak the language of the heart. The story. The fuel of craving. Let us consider the story of Sarah, who wanted to practice speaking English every day, but she felt anxious and uncomfortable. Her need was speaking practice. Her heart, however, desired something completely different. Listening to her favorite comedy podcast about history. Every day, the desire for the podcast pulled her away from the anxiety of speaking. She could not force herself to speak because the emotional reward for the easy, fun activity was much stronger. Then, Sarah used the wisdom of the second law. She decided to use a process called temptation bundling. She did not eliminate the thing she wanted. She used it as fuel. Her new rule became this: I will listen to my history podcast, which I want, only while I am walking outside and describing the trees, the cars, and the people that I see in English, which I need. Do you see the change? The act of practicing English was no longer tied to anxiety. It became tied to the joy of the podcast. The podcast became the immediate, attractive reward that pulled her through the difficult, necessary task. The heart now desires the start of the process because it knows the pleasure will follow. The solution: use desire as fuel. The second law says, make it attractive. This means learning to use temptation bundling to rewire your brain. We are using a chemical process to serve our higher goal. Here is the simple formula for temptation bundling. I will do, need immediately before I do, want, or I will do, want only while I do, need. Your brain is a prediction machine. When you consistently pair a high-pleasure activity with a low-pleasure activity, your brain begins to anticipate the reward. It starts to feel a craving for the low-pleasure activity because it knows that the high-pleasure activity is waiting just behind it. To apply this to your English learning, after I write 3 sentences in English, I will watch my favorite 5 minutes of video game streaming. I will listen to my favorite music only while I am cleaning my room and naming the objects in English. We are not fighting the current. We are using the current of desire to propel us forward. Shadowing phrase. This is the deeper philosophical truth of action. Repeat this phrase 3 times. Desire is the engine that drives behavior. Every action is taken because of the anticipation that precedes it. Desire is the engine that drives behavior. Every action is taken because of the anticipation that precedes it. Desire is the engine that drives behavior. Every action is taken because of the anticipation that precedes it. Part 5. The third law. The path of least resistance. The misconception. We have been taught that success requires heroic effort. We believe that if a habit is easy, it cannot be valuable. We associate discipline with pain and struggle. This thinking leads us to fail repeatedly. We rely on motivation and willpower, which are like tiny candles that the wind can easily blow out. We think we must climb the steepest mountain, even when an easy, gentle slope is available. The true master does not fight. The true master understands the nature of energy. If you try to force yourself to do something that takes tremendous effort every single day, you will eventually burn out. Your energy is finite, but the resistance of the world is infinite. You cannot win that fight. The third law teaches us a different wisdom. Make it easy. The story. The student and the textbook. Let us consider the story of Marcus, a dedicated student who wanted to study his English textbook every evening. His goal was clear and his desire was strong. However, every evening, when Marcus came home tired, the textbook was on the highest shelf in the closet. He would have to walk to the closet, open the door, move 2 heavy boxes, and then pull down the book. This process took only 1 minute, but that 1 minute of friction was a mountain to his tired mind. In that moment of low energy, the path of least resistance, the television and the phone, always won. Then, Marcus learned to make it easy. He did 2 simple things. First, he took the English textbook out of the closet and put it in the middle of his living room table, right next to his favorite armchair. The book was now obvious. Second, he removed the batteries from the television remote control and put them in a drawer across the room. What happened? The friction to study was now almost zero. The book was sitting there, open, waiting for him. The friction to watch television was now high. He would have to walk across the room, open the drawer, and replace the batteries. Marcus did not change his desire. He changed his environment. He designed his life so that the good habit was the easiest option. The solution? Design your flow. The third law is the wisdom of the flowing water. Water does not push against the rock. It flows around it, taking the path of least resistance. You must arrange your life so that your good habits are on the downhill path. This is called priming the environment. We must make our good habits accessible and our bad habits invisible. For your English learning, to learn new words, always keep your flashcards on your pillow, so you cannot go to sleep without seeing them. To practice speaking, keep your headphones and microphone set up on your desk, not tucked away in a drawer. To stop wasting time on the internet, make the friction higher. Log out of all your social media accounts every night, so that signing back in takes 10 steps instead of 1. Every time you reduce the steps required for a good habit, you are improving your success rate. Make your good habit require 2 minutes of action or less. The less effort required, the more likely you are to start. Shadowing phrase. This is the principle of persistent, gentle movement. Listen to this phrase 3 times. Walk slowly, but never backward. Walk slowly, but never backward. Walk slowly, but never backward. Part 6. The fourth law. The joy of the moment. The misconception. We have made the habit obvious, attractive, and easy. Yet, why do we still stop? Why do we return to the old path? The final battle is fought in the gap between immediate and delayed satisfaction. Good habits, like studying English vocabulary, have a massive reward, but it is delayed. You learn 10 words today, but you will not feel fluent for 3 years. The reward is invisible. You are asking your ancient brain to work for a future self it cannot yet see. Bad habits, like eating a piece of cake or spending an hour scrolling on your phone, have an immediate reward. The sugar rush is instant. The mental distraction is instant. The consequence of the bad habit, however, is delayed. You will not gain 10 pounds from one piece of cake. This is the great imbalance of the human mind. We prioritize the instant pleasure over the future pain. We are always trying to choose the easiest and most satisfying option right now. To win this battle, we must make the good habit immediately satisfying. The story, the visual proof. Let us consider the story of David, who wanted to practice his English speaking every morning. He set up his phone camera and recorded himself for 5 minutes, describing his breakfast. The process was easy, and he had bundled it with his coffee. But after 3 weeks, he quit. Why? He said, "It felt like a chore. I felt no immediate sense of victory. The victory of being 1% better was abstract. It existed only in his mind." Then, David learned the wisdom of the 4th law. He introduced a habit tracker. He bought a simple calendar and put it on his desk. After he finished his 5 minutes of speaking practice, he took a thick red marker and drew a large, satisfying X over that day. What happened? David was no longer working for fluency in 3 years. He was working for the immediate physical pleasure of drawing that red X. That mark was the instant proof that he was a student who shows up. That mark was a small, immediate reward that satisfied his ancient need for instant accomplishment. He was not breaking his streak of X's. The visible line of X's became his motivation. The solution, the power of the mark. The 4th law says, make it satisfying. The easiest way to do this is to use habit tracking to make your progress visible. When you finish a good habit, you need a ceremonial closure. You need to register the victory in your body and your mind. For your English learning, when you finish listening to 10 minutes of a difficult English audio, immediately take a $1 coin and put it into a clear jar labeled Future English Trip. The sight of the growing money is your immediate reward. When you finish a session of vocabulary review, immediately use a large marker to check off the day on a calendar. Never break the chain of marks. If you are trying to avoid using your native language, you can make the bad habit immediately unsatisfying by introducing a reversal of the law. Every time you slip, you must immediately delete one of your favorite photos from your phone. This makes the consequence immediate and painful. You must become the witness to your own progress. Make the feeling of success immediate, even if the final result is far away. Shadowing. Phrase. This is the core principle of human behavior. Listen and repeat 3 times. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. Part 7. The art of showing up. The misconception. We have explored the 4 laws of behavior change, but there is a final, simple truth that stops most people. It is the beginning. We think the hardest part of any task is the long, difficult middle section. We imagine the challenge is to study for 3 hours without stopping. We think the challenge is to write the entire essay. But this is a delusion. The truth is that the hardest part is not the work itself. The hardest part is starting. The moment we transition from doing nothing to doing something is the moment of greatest resistance. We often feel overwhelmed by the vision of the large task, and that feeling prevents us from even taking the first step. When a task takes more than 2 minutes to begin, we will instinctively avoid it. We believe that if we cannot do the whole thing, we should do nothing at all. This is the logic of self-sabotage. The story. The student who opened the book. Let us consider the story of Maria, an English learner who struggled with procrastination. Her goal was to study for 1 hour every night, but when she returned home from work, she felt exhausted. The thought of a full 60-minute study session was too heavy. So, she used the 2-minute rule. She decided that her nightly English habit would no longer be study for 1 hour. It became open the textbook and read the first sentence. Her husband would sometimes see her open the book, read one sentence, and then close it. He would ask, "Is that all?" And she would smile and say, "That is the victory for today." But here is the secret. Most days, Maria found that once she had overcome the threshold of starting, once she had opened the book and read the first sentence, she felt a shift. The feeling of doing nothing was replaced by the feeling of progress. She would then read the second sentence and the third, and often she would continue for 20 or 30 minutes. She understood that the first 2 minutes are a ritual, not a performance. The goal of the first 2 minutes is not to achieve mastery, but to achieve momentum. The solution? Downscale to 2 minutes. The 2-minute rule is the wisdom of simplicity. It states, when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to perform. The goal is to simplify the beginning of the habit until it is impossible to say no. You are using a 2-minute trick to get your foot in the door. Your true habit can still be long, but the start must be short. Study English vocabulary for 1 hour is downscaled to take out 1 flashcard. Practice speaking for 20 minutes is downscaled to say the phrase, "Hello, my name is," in English. Write 1,000 words is downscaled to write the title of the essay. We are separating the entrance to the path from the journey on the path. The 2-minute rule masters the art of showing up. The habit is not about the amazing work you do. It is about proving to yourself every single day that you are the type of person who starts. You cannot improve a habit that does not exist. First, you must establish it. Once the routine is established, you can slowly increase the time from 2 minutes to 5 minutes, then to 10 minutes, and beyond. Shadowing phrase. This is the key to establishment. Listen to the simplicity of this truth. A habit must be established before it can be improved. A habit must be established before it can be improved. A habit must be established before it can be improved. Part 8. The Garden of the Mind. The misconception. We have explored the 4 laws, how to make a habit obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. But there is a silent, powerful force that controls all 4 laws at once. That force is your environment. We often believe that our behavior is a product of our willpower or our discipline. We think that if we are strong enough, we can resist any temptation. We try to rely on our own internal strength, ignoring the world around us. This is a failure of wisdom. You are like a boat on the ocean. You can row hard, but if the current is pushing against you every second of the day, you will eventually lose the fight. You are asking your internal mind to resist external pressure constantly. This battle is unnecessary and exhausting. Your habits are not formed in isolation. They are formed by the space you occupy. The story. The three zones of the student. Let us consider the story of George, an English student who always felt anxious when he sat down to study. He used his bed, his kitchen table, and his sofa as his study spaces. His brain received mixed signals. His bed was a signal for sleep. His sofa was a signal for relaxing and watching films. When he sat in these places to study English, his brain was confused. It could not focus because the architecture of the room signaled a different behavior. The environment was working against him. Then, George learned to become the architect of his own space. He created 3 zones in his small apartment. 1. The zone of rest, only the bed. Nothing related to work or study was allowed there. 2. The zone of pleasure, the sofa and the television. 3. The zone of focus, a small dedicated desk with only a laptop and his English books. What happened? When George sat at his desk, his brain immediately understood the signal. This place means focus. This place means English. He did not need willpower to start. The room pulled him into the habit. The environment had become his silent teacher and his powerful guide. The solution? Be the architect of your world. Your environment is the invisible hand that shapes your human behavior. If you want a behavior to be a major part of your life, make the cues for that behavior a major part of your environment. We must design for flow. Design your world so that the opportunities for good habits are right in front of you, and the opportunities for bad habits are hidden away. For your English learning, if you want to listen to English audiobooks, keep your headphones hanging directly on the door handle of your house. When you leave, the habit is obvious. If you want to stop watching your native language television, remove the application from your main screen and put the remote control on the top shelf, requiring 10 steps to reach it. You can dedicate a room or even a corner of a room to a single purpose. A study desk should be used only for studying. The context is everything. When the context is stable, the habit becomes automatic. Do not try to change your mind. Change your room. Change your garden, and your soul will change with it. Shadowing phrase. This is the deeper philosophical truth of our surroundings. Listen and repeat 3 times. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. Part 9. Walking the Middle Path. The misconception: we have mastered the art of starting a habit. We have learned to make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. But what happens after 6 months or 1 year? You are no longer a beginner. The habit is now automatic. You are showing up every single day. And yet suddenly you stop. Why? Most people believe that the greatest challenge to long-term success is failure. We worry about falling off the path. But the true invisible killer of long-term habits is boredom. The repetitive nature of daily habit can turn the path of mastery into a dull, flat road. When something becomes too easy, your mind loses focus. When you know exactly what is going to happen, your brain stops paying attention. The process loses its attraction. We think we must feel passion every day, but passion fades. We need a way to sustain interest. The story. The student of the perfect curve. Let me tell you about Sarah, the English speaker we met earlier. After 1 year, she mastered her vocabulary routine. She knew her flashcards perfectly. But then, she started skipping days. She said, "The habit is easy, but it is no longer interesting. She was bored because the task was no longer demanding her full attention. It was too easy. Imagine a curve of effort. On the far left, the task is too easy, and you are bored. On the far right, the task is too difficult, and you are frustrated. When you are frustrated, you quit. When you are bored, you quit. The goal is to find the middle path, the point exactly between boredom and frustration. This is the Goldilocks zone. This is where true learning and flow happen. Flow is the state where you are so focused on the task that the rest of the world disappears. You lose track of time. The solution. The 1% challenge. The Goldilocks rule says that to maintain maximum motivation, you must find tasks that are slightly beyond your current ability. Not 10% harder, but perhaps 1% harder. Just enough to feel the strain, but not enough to feel defeated. This is the secret to sustained excellence. The monk does not seek comfort, he seeks balance. He knows that the repetition of practice is necessary, but he also knows that the practice must evolve. When your English studies become too easy, increase the challenge by 1%. If you are used to reading simple articles, find an article where 1 in every 100 words is new. Increase the metric. If you are able to write 5 sentences easily, push yourself to write 6 sentences. Introduce controlled failure. Try speaking about an abstract topic that you know will cause you to stumble. It is in the stumbling that learning truly happens. When the habit feels easy, it is a signal to increase the challenge slightly. This subtle increase keeps you engaged. It keeps you in the state of flow, where the repetition is not dull, but deeply fulfilling. Your journey is not meant to be effortless. It is meant to be engaging. Shadowing phrase. This is the silent enemy of the long-term student. Repeat this phrase 3 times. The greatest threat to success is not failure, but boredom. The greatest threat to success is not failure, but boredom. The greatest threat to success is not failure, but boredom. Part 10. When the master stops learning. The misconception: we have reached the stage of mastery. Your good habits are automatic. They are obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. You have found your flow. This is a beautiful state of being, but it contains a hidden danger: complacency. When a habit becomes too easy, your mind stops paying attention. You start running on autopilot. This is wonderful for efficiency, but it is terrible for improvement. If you are not paying attention, you are not learning. The master, ironically, often stops improving because the habit is too deeply ingrained. The work moves from the front of your mind to the background, and in the background, small errors begin to creep in. Subtle decay begins to occur. The habit is now so easy that you forget to respect it. You are no longer moving toward the frontier of your ability. The story. The veteran chef. Let us consider the story of Paul, a brilliant chef who had cooked the same famous soup for 20 years. His technique was perfect. He could make the soup without thinking. One day, a young apprentice tasted the soup and pointed out a small problem. The salt level was slightly inconsistent. Paul was insulted. "I have made this soup thousands of times," he said. But the apprentice explained, "Yes, you have made it thousands of times, but you have not tasted it with a critical mind for 10 years. The habit is so automatic that you now simply pour, instead of truly tasting and adjusting." Paul realized the apprentice was right. He had confused repetition with refinement. He was doing the work, but he was not learning from the work. He was no longer challenging himself. His expertise had put him to sleep. The solution: reflection and refinement. The purpose of mastery is not a perfect outcome, but perfect self-awareness. We must build a system of reflection. Once every week, you must stop all action and step back to look at your entire system. This is what we call the habit scorecard review. It is a moment of deep, monk-like contemplation. Ask yourself these 3 questions. 1. Am I still showing up to the habit? If not, why? 2. Is the habit still serving my identity? Am I becoming the person I wish to be? 3. Where am I running on autopilot? Where are the small errors creeping in? If you are learning English, perhaps you realize that your vocabulary is strong, but your listening comprehension is weak. The reflection shows you where the imbalance lies. You do not abandon the old habit. You narrow your focus to the weak point and begin to apply the Goldilocks rule again, increasing the challenge by 1% in that specific area. Mastery is not a destination. It is an endless cycle of doing, observing, and refining. You must always be a student, even when you are the teacher. Always be aware. Never let the automatic habit become an unconscious sleep. Shadowing. Phrase. This is the definition of true, sustained growth. Listen and repeat this profound phrase 3 times. Mastery is the process of narrowing your focus to a tiny element of success, repeating it until you have internalized the skill, and then using this new foundation to advance to the next frontier. Mastery is the process of narrowing your focus to a tiny element of success, repeating it until you have internalized the skill, and then using this new foundation to advance to the next frontier. Mastery is the process of narrowing your focus to a tiny element of success, repeating it until you have internalized the skill, and then using this new foundation to advance to the next frontier. Part 11. My Own Journey. We have walked this long path together, through the 4 laws and the wisdom of small steps. Now, let me share a simple truth about myself, the one speaking these words. I used to be the worst kind of perfectionist. I believed that if I missed 1 day of a good habit, the entire system was ruined. If I promised myself I would study English vocabulary for 20 minutes, and then one evening I only managed 10 minutes, I would punish myself with judgment. I would say, well, you failed. You might as well quit for the rest of the week. I treated my habits like a harsh sergeant. I wanted immediate, flawless obedience. And because I demanded perfection, I received nothing but frustration. I would spend 3 weeks building a beautiful routine, and then one small mistake, one missed day, would cause me to abandon the entire structure. My error was simple. I did not understand the true nature of the path. I thought success meant walking a straight line. But the true path of growth is not a straight line, it is a spiral. We revisit the same challenges, but from a higher level of wisdom. I learned to forgive myself. I learned that missing 1 day is an accident. Missing 2 days is the beginning of a new habit. I learned to respect the 2-minute rule not as a trick, but as an act of self-compassion. If I am tired and overwhelmed, I do not demand 20 minutes. I simply demand 2 minutes. I ask myself only to show up. If you are struggling right now, know this. I relate to your anxiety. The master is the one who does not give up after one mistake. The true master is the one who understands how to restart quickly without self-pity or self-judgment. The wisdom of the monk is knowing that the path is long and patience is the most powerful tool of all. Take one last deep breath. We have traveled far today. We began by speaking of the chaos and the exhaustion of trying to force change. We end with the peace of knowing that you are the architect of your own character. Remember the wisdom of the 4 laws. 1. Make it obvious. Light up the path. 2. Make it attractive. Use desire as fuel for your journey. 3. Make it easy. Be the water that finds the path of least resistance. 4. Make it satisfying. Give yourself this small, immediate reward. Your life right now is the sum of your past habits. Your life in 3 years will be the sum of the atomic habits you choose today. You do not need a revolution. You need refinement. Do not allow this powerful information to become just another piece of knowledge you forget. Knowledge is only a rumor until it lives in the body. You must take action. I give you this final challenge. Do not wait for tomorrow. Do not wait for motivation. Pick one simple 2-minute habit right now. Will you put your English textbook on your pillow? Will you commit to saying one sentence in English before you look at your phone? Decide, act, and start walking the middle path. You are not just learning English, you are building a legacy, one invisible brick at a time. If this story has awakened something in your spirit, if it has helped you see the quiet power of your own potential, then join our community. This is Luminary English. We are here to light the way for learners just like you. Like this video to mark your commitment to the 1% improvement. Subscribe to join our path to better English. And most importantly, leave a comment below and tell me, what is the one atomic habit you will begin today? Go now and build your foundation.